welcome to the channel, and we have to talk about the Argentine miracle from bankruptcy to booming because, well, mostly because of this man who was invited at the World Economic Forum. They probably regret that invitation, given that his speech was not exactly flowers and unicorns. But hey, we'll talk about this. Guys, as always, if you want to learn more about realistic preparedness and survival, especially the economic aspect of this, especially with this video, so strongly linked to what I've been doing pretty much well, for many years now, surviving the economic collapse is the experience of going through the economic collapse that led to this man being elected in Argentina. And I also recommend survival skills, practical knowledge on survival preparedness and self-defense. So how is it that we went from this to one of the most booming economies in modern times? It is pretty undeniable. Well, mostly it is because of what you've seen Elon Musk talk about. One of the reasons why Elon Musk is a great fan of the president of Argentina, this man that you see here, Javier Milei. Why? Because no hay plata. No hay plata, there's no money. Stop asking for money. There's no money anymore. We cannot print money. You have to deal with whatever the budget is, and that is his mantra. That is his battle cry. Something that in the running towards the election in Trump and Elon Musk, they were going for it, but old habits die hard apparently, and you're back to even more spending than before. But not this man. No. Damn, Javier Milei has said there's no money and there's freaking no money. You're not going to spend a cent more. And because of that, the economy is doing better than ever. Let's see what the left has had to say about Javier Milei. Let's see what the right has to say. And in some circles, he's like the darling of the right. And let me tell you how actually things are and what really is going on besides those often polarized positions, okay?
The Argentinian president is an economist at heart. He also has pretty controversial views about politics.
By the way, this is
very critical of the left, which is why so many people label him as a far-right politician. Milei thinks that if you're on the left, you are a terrible person. He also thinks that socialism is a murderous system that only creates misery.
Yeah.
Saying this about communism is generally accepted, but saying this about socialism is pretty radical.
No, I fully agree with him. I mean, the difference these days between communism and socialism, and yeah, you can point at certain socialist Nordic countries that have very little to do with what is often promoted as socialism in some other Western nations. But honestly, the ideology of the left in general, it is quite destructive and toxic. Throughout history, it's been that way, okay?
Aligning with other right-wing movements, Milei also claimed that climate change is a socialist lie and that gender ideology is cultural Marxism, okay? These things have attracted a lot of criticism from the media and Milei's opponents, as he was called El Loco, or the madman. But Milei's hate for the government and the left-wing elite was incredibly popular in Argentina. After all, just imagine what it's like to live in a country that's been in decline for decades and decades on end. Many lower and middle-class people in Argentina simply don't care what the media or the left-wing politicians have to say. They simply want change. Now, 1 year into the presidency, we can finally judge how Milei has done. Politically, there are obviously widely different opinions on his actions. The president in Argentina shares many similarities with new US President Donald Trump, also on issues not related to the economy. He withdrew from the World Health Organization. He wants to combat illegal immigration, and he wants stronger law enforcement. He also abolished several government ministries, including the Ministry of Women, Gender, and Diversity. He also launched a war on wokeism, which he claims is a cancer that must be extirpated. All of these policies make Milei very controversial and divisive, with parts of society loving him and others hating him for it.
It's really not. It's really not that's why he won. And something that they missed in the start of this video, which, by the way, the channel's business basics. Argentina does the impossible in just 1 year, from bankruptcy to booming. So it's pretty much a positive view, but they don't get everything right. This idea that Milei just won on his own. Milei could have easily lost if it wasn't for a great magnanimous action from the center-right in Argentina, mostly former President Mauricio Macri, who Milei very much insulted for a long time, but that president, that center-right former president, only had one term because he was a bit too moderate, a bit too polite. Milei speaks like, let's say I start insulting and cursing like a fucking maniac. Well, some people get off, oh, you just said the F word. Well, Milei says the F word all the time. He does not stop saying it. That's basically 90% of his language is insults, mostly towards the left, mostly towards the woke agenda, mostly towards all of this crap that has destroyed the country. And because he was that plain and simple and brutal in the way he openly insulted with no politically correct, even the slightest tint of politically correctness, openly insulting and hating on these fucking monsters that destroy the country, that's why people said, oh, so you get it. You are one of us. You are fed up of all of this crap. Okay, we will vote for you. But it was not enough. Then you had the center-right moderates, a little bit more of the Mauricio Macri kind of guys that were like, yeah, you know what? I agree, but you don't have to insult and say the F word and the B word and all of the words that so many people do. You're a little bit too coarse. You're a little bit too rough around the edges. You're a little bit too brutal, right? But in the moment that mattered the most, right when he would have lost, and again, the same bastards that have been ruling the country for almost half a century, the center-right, Mauricio Macri, had a patriotic action of, okay, we're going with you. You insulted me. You said I'm a piece of shit. You labeled me just as bad as the left or even worse. But I'm gonna go with you. I'll tell all of my supporters, we're gonna go with you, and you're not gonna give me anything. I mean, you're gonna screw me over, but I don't care because we don't want to go back to the left lunacy, the destruction, the looting of the country. That is that is the reason. It's not one. It is the reason why Javier Milei is present today. If not, he would not have won without the support of Mauricio Macri and Patricia Bullrich, who he did place in his Ministry of Defense and is actually doing a great job. A woman that Patricia Bullrich was a communist revolutionary, gun-toting communist revolutionary running around in a fucking jungle with a gun. And she realized that was another way of doing things. So she was not she was damn Marxist lunatic, Patricia Bullrich, and she admits, I was stupid, I was young, and now I'm doing things different. And I guess it's a story of reivindication, so you can change. She adjusted very much to the right, or almost kind of like far right, but she's been doing a great job in terms of security. No one can deny that, even though the country is going still very much through one of the worst crime waves, and it's very difficult. The homicide rate has dropped, which is interesting, but still very dangerous country. But it is the track that you should be in, all right? Why I'm saying all of these things is because it's not being said in the video. These are all things that they obviously did not know of. It's not always easy to get the right picture, but all of these things matter because it's in these details often that you have a difference. It's in these details that you have Trump, you have Elon Musk. It is in the details that they deviate and they go separate ways. Wait a minute, we're not going with what we said we were doing. We are not going with the reduction of government spending and the size of the government. We're actually making it even bigger. These details matter because these are the ones that form the greater picture, okay? In the case of Argentina, it was aligned towards we need to really do things right for once and for all. And it is all about living within your means. If there's no money for these assholes, which you see with the Eva Perón, Evita, Kami, lefty movement, all of these bastards crying about, oh, well, you're not giving us enough money. Well, there is no money, man. We cannot give you money that is not there. If you would see the same thing in the United States, if you would see the same thing in Europe, if some leaders in Europe would go, dude, you know, I get you. You're suffering. You're a refugee. I just can't take you in. We don't have the money for this. We barely can support ourselves at that, right? There's no money for any refugee, so no, you can't come here. Trump has said, no, there's no big, fat, beautiful bill. There's no money for it. We're in debt. We don't have money for that shit. We can't do it. One of the things that Elon Musk was really looking forward to, in spite of him being himself a man that has become literally the richest man in the world, thanks to government spending in his benefit. I guess we all understand that, right? We're not stupid. We get it, right? But what he said he wanted to do in the government did not come to pass, and that's why they've gone mostly different ways. Now, in the case of Argentina and Javier Milei, no. We're riding with this until we damn break the tires, but we're not stopping. And a year later, this is the result.
But Milei's approval rating is doing all right. At the 1-year mark into his presidency, his approval rating was higher than the previous 2 presidents. The reason has to do with the economy. Defying most expectations, Argentina is making incredible progress on the economic front despite cutting government spending. Fixing the economy was Milei's main selling point, and he delivered. Milei said that, "We are already delivering a wonderful government. In fact, it's the best government in the history of Argentina." You can decide if you believe this or not, but the economic figures don't lie. Argentina escaped a 2-year recession that had entered back in 2023, and the future is bright for Argentina. The OECD predicts 5.2% GDP growth in 2025 and 4.3% GDP growth in 2026. This economic recovery was way faster than expected. And most importantly, it happened while Milei cut the government budget by an estimated 31%. That's more than 10% of GDP. Something that...
It's insane. That's the thing that Donald Trump did not do. Did he plan to not do it all along? Was it something that changed? I don't know. I don't have any... What I can only tell you is the facts that are inevitable, that are... I mean, you cannot argue with the sun being up in the sky, right? You can, but it's not that, it's a star. Okay, whatever it is. It's there, right? 2 + 2 = 4. You cannot argue with these things. You cannot argue with the results. In the same way, you cannot argue with the fact that instead of reducing government spending, he ended up increasing government spending. Not in the case of Milei. Milei reduced government spending, and not only that, he said it would be hard. It would not be easy, and there would be worse times ahead because of his plan, all right? So in all of that, he was completely 100% absolute honest.
It's never been done before in Argentinian history. As a result, the country has recorded its first fiscal surplus in 14 years, and it can now start to pay off some of its debts and become more financially responsible. It's a huge difference compared to the previous administration, which ran at a deficit of 4.4% of GDP in 2023. Economists are surprised because, according to modern economic theory, the government needs to increase spending to get out of a recession. A rapid reduction in spending could actually hurt the economy and spark a further recession. But the shock therapy largely worked, as the private sector expanded so rapidly that it made up for the loss in government spending. Meanwhile, Milei's approval ratings are holding up, with one of the highest approval ratings globally. In an interview with the Financial Times, Milei said that, "I have a 50% approval rating after carrying out the biggest austerity program in our history. It's a miracle, isn't it?" On top of that, the inflation rate has dropped tremendously. When Milei got into office, there was hyperinflation, with the annual inflation rate exceeding 200%. Now, inflation is at a 5-year low because Milei stopped printing money. However, not everyone likes what he's done so far. At the very beginning of his term, Milei removed 13 government agencies, and 30,000 federal employees lost their jobs.
That's what they don't like. That's what the left doesn't like. So this is one of the things that people in Argentina got straight. Yeah, there's going to be people that don't like. Do you know who is it that doesn't like it? The people have been looting the country. All of these left-wing socialists and all of these good doer wokey bullshit things that it's for the artists, it's for the actresses, it's for the collectives, all this bullshit that at the end of the day is you're taking money out of my pocket, man, to finance all of this shit. Stop doing it. We cannot do it anymore. We're broke. We don't have money. Stop wasting, stop throwing away my money, stop stealing my money for political gain, right? In the eye of the left-wing public. We are not a left-wing country anymore. We're just the leftover disaster of all of those left-wing politics and people that are already so fed up with that, you just don't want to see even a shadow of that bullshit anymore, right? That's why you end up voting the guy that says, I don't give a fuck. Literally, he says those things. He literally says, I don't give a fuck about how you don't like. You're a damn monster socialist consumer of fucking souls. Go and die in some corner. Get out of the way. Let us fix your disaster. I'm speaking this. Someone in that comment said, you insult. I'm speaking like 30% of the 100% way in which Javier Milei would speak in Spanish. With those, not only those words, but times 5 is the way in which he explained what he would do. And when he spoke that plainly, people said, okay, we're going with you. We're voting you because we are also fed up of this crap. We can't put up with this anymore, right? And it ended up working. It ended up working to the right? The expense of what? The government plans that shouldn't have been there in the first place. 30,000 lost jobs. It's closer to 100,000 if you also throw in there the jobs that did not exist, the kind of thing that Elon Musk discovered in the United States as well. So as you see, no one is here super special. The same crap that has been going on in Argentina for a long time has also been going in the United States for a long time. All of those, people that don't even exist and have a salary and have a benefit, hundreds of thousands of people that when you say, hey, okay, you'll keep on receiving your money if you actually go into this website and sign up, half of the people don't even do that anymore. That is nonsense. That just goes to prove that it was being stolen. In the case of Argentina, what every damn government has done right when they were leaving office is, okay, I throw all of my buddies, all of my friends, all of the ones that have been loyal to me, I throw a bone to them and have them sign up for some government job. They don't even have to show up, but they'll be in the payroll. That is what mostly got fired. Really, not people that were actually showing up to do something productive. People that were not even showing up to do something that is not productive. People that were just in a payroll list, and that's it.
Or about 10% of the federal workforce. Milei claimed he fired even more, saying that 50,000 were dismissed. The government also doesn't renew contracts anymore. As a result, the unemployment rate went up 1% initially. The government employees that stayed had their wages diluted due to inflation and a halt in salary increases. Milei's idea is that lower government spending and lower taxes could fuel economic growth, and the people who are dismissed could then get hired by the growing private sector. However, many people have a hard time adjusting to this. Another group that's been hit hard in Argentina is poor people. This was the biggest point of criticism against Milei's government. He cut all kinds of subsidies and reduced funding for social services. The poverty rate was already terrible when he got into office, as it stood at 42%. During the first half of 2024, this increased to 53%, pushing 3.4 million people into poverty. Many experts and journalists called the Argentinian president out for this, claiming he's betraying the poor. For a while, there were also violent protests in Buenos Aires against the government's economic decisions, but that's calming down already. In the second half of 2024, the poverty rate fell to 37%, according to private estimates. That's lower than when Milei got into office.
So, as he correctly explained now, I was about to stop it, but he actually corrected. So it went up. Poverty in Argentina, which is already a poor country, went up even more. More than half people were living in poverty. And poverty in Argentina is not poverty in Europe, right? No, poverty in Argentina is you're really damn poor, right? So it is true. It went up even more. And it happened as he predicted. He said it's going to be bad. But even faster than he said, it started going down. And now you have less poverty than when he took office with the right measures, with doing things right, with not throwing away money, right? So not only are you doing things right, not only are you living within your means, you have less poverty than when he came in.
And it would mean that more than 7 million people were lifted out of poverty in 6 months. There are a couple of reasons for this. Most importantly, inflation has slowed down and purchasing power stabilized. The private sector is also finally growing under Milei's administration, which allows people to work their way out of poverty. In his New Year's address, the president also claimed that his administration is delivering social support way more efficiently. There was a lot of government waste under the previous administrations, and spending less doesn't always lead to less support for poor people. Milei's economic agenda wasn't just about cutting government spending, though. It also focused on increasing economic freedom by cutting government red tape. The president said that his administration had cut more than 900 regulations, or about 3 per day.
And another thing that's important to clarify, all of the welfare stuff, the food stamps, all of that, it's not it was cut. What he did was something that is actually something that should be done everywhere, which is cutting all of the middlemen, cutting all of the, okay, I give you the food stamps, but you show up for my political rally. All of those middlemen that politicize poverty, he cut mostly that. That's what really got cut. The idea of someone that was starving and no longer having a food stamp equivalent, no, that's not what got cut. What got cut was all of the middleman crap. What got cut was the politics of, for example, Argentina still very much has free education, free healthcare. In the socialized idea of healthcare and education. In Argentina, you can go to college and become a doctor without spending a single cent in your education. You'll have to support yourself, whatever, but you walk into that building and you will get an education and you will end up with a degree. And it's usually quite good. it's usually the kind of degree in the University of Buenos Aires. It's pretty held in high regard. It's good. It's not as if you have a piece of toilet paper. You actually got, your degree. That's something that Javier Milei did not try to mess with. As libertarian as he is, these are cornerstones of Argentina's society. You don't fuck with the ability to go to a hospital and get treated if you're sick. You don't fuck with the idea of going to the University of Buenos Aires or the public University of Córdoba or where else and getting an education because I don't have enough money. Those are things that you cannot just rip away from society because it's not part of what's already been considered. These are some of the achievements, that you managed to get as a society back from the day in which Argentina was the country that it wants to be again, being one of the richest countries in the world while doing that, right? That was not the problem. The problem was stealing and the politics and politicizing everything. You can very much have public universities, and it hasn't got to be some fucking $300,000 debt that you go into it. And as libertarian as he is, as anarcho-libertarian as he is, those are things he promised he would not touch, and he hasn't touched. Those would definitely be the end of his political career because those are maybe some of the foundations of what you have in Argentina as achievements and things that you're not willing to compromise. Even if I taught in the public University of Argentina, I had to struggle, and at times it was physical when the commies would go into your class and try to politicize the shit while you were there working for free in the same place you had studied, so that someone else can have the same benefit that you had. And I had also studied in private universities, and I had private healthcare, and I had public healthcare, which I didn't even have to sign up to because being Argentine, you have that right. I just chose to pay for private as well, and that's what I use the most. But I have no problem. If my money is going to be taken away, right, the idea of something being taken away from you by force, which is what taxation is, those are the few things that I'm willing to be okay with, right, to an extent. As long as you're not abusing it and you're not politicizing it and using it for your personal political gain, yeah. It's education, it's health, and it's security, the things that a government should be able to provide for its citizens in 2025, right? These are the things that he hasn't messed with. So in all of these fronts, he has done an actual excellent job.
In the rental market, this has been very successful. The government stopped getting involved, and as a result, rent dropped by 40% in real terms. And the supply of rental properties in Buenos Aires jumped by a huge 300%. This is just one example where less government regulation can lead to more economic prosperity. Yeah. Moving to another aspect of economic freedom, namely taxation, Milei is making less progress. Although export taxes have been reduced, income taxes slightly increased. The president wants to be fiscally responsible, and it's hard to cut taxes while moving out of a government deficit. But Milei has promised to start cutting taxes this year, which would help consumers and the private sector. Eventually, he wants to reform the tax system entirely to make it way less complex. He wants no more than 6 kinds of taxes, removing 90% of the number of existing.
So it is true, and this is the thing that every single politician, even a libertarian, that's the only way where you get money, my man. That's the way in which you get money, and that's why it's so difficult to stop taking from the people at gunpoint, which is what the government does every time it taxes you. So it's very difficult. Will he do it? I hope he does. We'll have to wait and see. I will say, though, something that they haven't said, which is he got rid of the damn IRS. The equivalent of Argentina, which the IRS equivalent in Argentina, he just got rid of it and replaced it with something that was far more simple, less abusive, and it has been a real major success for businesses in Argentina. No longer do you have people, no longer do you have government employees that they used to be rewarded for sanctioning people, for finding something to fuck people with when trying to do business. All of that evil mechanism of rewarding and giving like cuts to government employees that found ways of freezing your accounts and finding ways of putting sanctions on you here and there, whatever excuse there was. No, now it's simply about we collect taxes, this is what you have to pay, period. Not persecuting people by having agencies dedicated to doing that.
taxes. This would make it way easier to do business in Argentina, and it removes yet another layer of red tape. Even though these ideas are pretty radical, Milei hasn't yet delivered on all of these promises. For example, he hasn't abolished the central bank or dollarized the economy. The reason is that it would destabilize the economy too much, to the point where Milei would lose his support and probably be ousted. Cutting government expenditures was already a big step that caused pain and hardship. Still, some anarcho-capitalists were disappointed by Milei, as they wanted him to go all in right when he took office. The president's response was that we're all liberal libertarians, we are not liberal fools, but he hasn't abandoned his plans. A lot is still going to change over the next few years. This could lead to even more economic success, but the president's policies could also come crashing down as they become more extreme. According to Milei himself, the difference between a madman and a genius is success. This man could go down in the history books as El Loco or as the man saving Argentina from its long demise.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't agree with dollarizing. Why would I dollarize my economy? Why would I throw my economy and the ability to print money, which is all fiat currency? Being a libertarian, you just are disgusted by fiat currency itself. But if there's going to be a fiat currency, I might as well be the one that controls it, right? If I'm going to have my people, my population, submit it to a fiat currency, right, which is bad enough, why would I do it with a fiat currency that I don't even control, the US dollar? It's going to be controlled by American bankers, right? By something other than myself. No, if I'm going to keep a fiat currency, I might as well keep my own. If you are responsible with not printing money when you don't have to print money, and there's times in which it is not a bad idea. You devaluate your own currency when it is the right thing for you to do. This is actually why we ended up like this. Because we did not have that ability because it was the Argentine peso pegged to the US dollar. So while Brazil, our biggest, next door neighbor, right, a huge competitor, while Brazil devaluated the real so as to adjust to what was happening economically, Argentina could not do that. So we ended up falling apart. You were not competitive with a currency that you do not control. Right? So I think it would be a bad idea to dollarize. There are countries that have dollarized in South America, not exactly any country that I would even like to be remotely like. Okay? So no, not a big, I don't believe it's a good idea to dollarize the Argentine economy, use the US dollar. No. Give me the shitty peso, at least it's mine. And if we do things right, everything will be okay. Guys, remember, you have the books in the links below if you want to learn more about this stuff. You can subscribe to the channel. You have the button somewhere there. See you next time. Take care.